Alright, let's edit this shit. Alright. So I guess we're doing 2 recordings today. We're going to be doing, we just finished with Lotuses. Now I'm going to do As Fate Would Have It. Again, I don't know how the whole... Bronya released... Right there. Okay, so I don't remember how badly I fucked up on this one. It's been a long while since I've actually done this. Alright, I need to get to the 5-second point, so about right about here somewhere. Bronya released a sigh of relief upon finishing her last document for the day. It had been a long and tiring day for the Supreme Guardian of Belobog, and between dealing with this... I'm gonna redo that. It had been a long and tiring day for the Supreme Guardian of Belobog. I'm glad you did redo it. It had been a long and tiring day for the Supreme Guardian of Belobog, and between dealing with endless paperwork and the arrogance of delegates looking to get on her good side, she was just ready to conclude her duties along with Seela, standing... She was just ready to conclude her duties along with Seela. No. She was just ready to conclude her duties along with Seela, standing just off to the side of her.
Hang on.
Seela line?
Hang on.
Duties along with Seela, standing...
Standing
She was just ready to conclude her duties along with Seela. No.
Right here? Something like that.
She was just ready to conclude her duties along with Seela, standing just off to the side of her. Seela line?
Alright.
Seela questioned, intending to irritate her friend. Don't even fucking start right now. Intending to irritate her friend. It worked.
Let's see if that might work.
Seela questioned, intending to...
Oh, I'm on monitoring. I need to not do that.
Seela questioned, intending to irritate her friend. It worked. Bronya line?
Alright.
Seela line?
Lot of talking.
Seela intervened. I'm just gonna turn it into a fucking line. I don't care.
Easy as fuck.
Seela responded with...
Alright.
Seela responded with a laugh, immediately causing Bronya to realize that she'd been tricked. Immediately causing
That in the recording?
Bronya to realize that she'd been tricked. Immediately causing...
Okay, it was in the recording. Oh. Okay, back to this. I always forget the freaking keys. It's just like my grandma all over again. Anyways.
Immediately causing Bronya to realize she'd been tricked again.
Alright. I need to zoom in a little bit. Gotta get that little breath out. Okay, is this it?
Immediate...
Yep.
Seela responded with a laugh, immediately causing Bronya to realize she'd been tricked again.
Okay.
Seela line?
Okay.
She mocked.
That's fine.
Seela line? Bronya let the axe slide yet again, suddenly recalling some specific work she'd filed earlier that day.
Okay, pull that back.
Suddenly recalling some specific work she'd filed earlier that day. Bronya line?
Alright.
Branya stated, shuffling through the documents atop her desk and gathering some specific ones to give to Zila. Upon gathering the papers and letters, Branya turned back to Zila and handed them out to her.
Okay, ouch. Alright, let's see. I need to pull the specters just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Specific ones to give to Zila. Upon gathering the papers and letters, Branya turned back to Zila and handed them out to her.
Alright, what do we got next?
Zila Lime? Zila asked. Branya Lime?
Alright, I can work around that.
Zila caught on and took the baggage from her friend, making sure she had them secured before turning to leave.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Took the baggage from her friend, making sure she had them secured before turning to leave. Zila Lime? Zila joked, to which she... Really? Zila joked, to which she managed to put a smile on Branya's face. Branya Lime?
Okay.
With a nod of assurance, Zila turned and left, leaving Branya to do whatever her plans were for the night. Branya Lime?
Alright.
She said to herself. Following that, she proceeded forward out of the office space and moved.
Hold that back.
Following that, she proceeded forward out of the office space and moved to the nearest elevator to head to the dining hall for a much-needed meal.
Okay, there's a pause here, I think.
Zila had met with
Alright. I wanted to kind of put a pause there anyways.
Zila had met up with Natasha first. Fucking shut up, you fucking piece of shit.
Let me just double check on things. Yeah, it's on.
Zila had met up with Natasha first, walking up to said lady and getting her attention by tapping her shoulder. Natasha first, walking up to said lady and getting her attention by tapping her shoulder. Natasha was assisting a patient that had a large bandage with a medium... No. Natasha was assisting a patient that had a large bandage with a medium-sized...
Oh, I remember this line. This line was a pain in the ass. I remember this one.
Natasha was assisting a patient that had a large bandage with a medium-sized stain of blood. With a medium-sized stain of blood seeping through the layers beneath around their right thigh.
Jesus Christ. Okay,
Patient that had a large... Patient...
I don't... Okay, I need to figure out where we are. Hello, Gazer, by the way. Right here.
That had...
Let's see if that might work.
Patient with a medium-sized stain of blood seeping through the... Patient with a medium-sized stain of blood seeping through the layers beneath around their right thigh. Upon one good look at the patient, Zila immediately knew they were a miner from the Great Mine, likely having been victim to a large rock after losing their balance. She'd seen this injury in Nat's clinic several fucking dicks. She'd seen this injury in Nat's clinic several times in her life, and it was actually quite common, so Natasha knew how to handle any injury as such quite well. Natasha jumped in surprise at the sudden touch to her shoulder, but upon catching sight of one of her most common visitors, she calmed and addressed the situation. Natasha Lime?
Ow.
Natasha stated. Zila nodded her head and took a seat on one of the nearby vacant beds and wait. This place had been a common sight to her since the day that she came in with a nasty laceration in her right shoulder. She had gotten into a scramble with a stray cat over some food out of desperation, and had ended up getting scratched deep enough to infect her bloodstream.
Cat scratch fever.
God damn it. Having been in plenty of scuffles before, Zila hadn't seen it as any sort of bloodstream.
Having been, yeah, it'd be a quick response. Okay, so something like that.
Scratched deep enough to infect her bloodstream. Having been in plenty of scuffles before, Zila hadn't seen it as any sort of issue, up until later that night when she had suddenly begun to feel extremely hot. She had begun to sweat horribly and feel as if she were going to pass out. Not to mention her injury had become swollen and had developed lymph nodes within the area. Being
Okay. There's something I want to check real quick. Thank you. Okay, that was the issue. Okay, I fixed it then.
Become swollen and had developed lymph nodes within the area. Being only a child at the time, Zila's condition was serious, and despite her objections that it would go away on its own, was taken to the clinic where she met, befriended, and learned.
Yep. Sometimes that's just how it goes sometimes.
Where she met, befriended, and learned a valuable life lesson to not always assume a scratch will heal on its own accord.
I also listened to the audio last night for the Reborn Redux. Everything's fine. I think the volume could be just a teensy bit louder. I mean, sometimes that's just a hard thing to determine sometimes. It's the volume. So I may have to boost the audio a little bit when I add the visual. Add the visuals and stuff. But that'll take time. Also, Gazer, how goes your progress on RTBAA? If I remember correct, you were supposed to do the interrogation scene. Yeah, you were. I keep getting you and the Nicola code mixed up.
To the clinic where she met, befriended, and learned a valuable life lesson to not always assume a scratch will heal on its own accord. Had the injury gone untreated, Zila would have likely died in her sleep that night.
Can I get that out? I can hear that. Let me see if I can't get that little out. Okay, I can get it out.
Had the injury gone untreated, Zila would have likely died in her sleep that night. Having finished her task.
God, my voice is so noisy.
Having finished her task, Zila was Having finished her task, Zila was accompanied by the true leader of Wildfire shortly after taking her seat on the bed. Natasha looked no different than any other time she'd visited the clinic, removing her mask and tossing it into the trash can right next to the bed. She then moved her
No, it's not what you think it is.
removing her mask and tossing it into the trash can right next to the bed. She then moved her gaze to Zila, noticing the mild stack of folders and letters just off to the side.
Oh, can I get that out? I can't. Okay, it's isolated. Good. Okay, I think this is a line.
Whoopsie doodle. Where are you? God fucking...
Okay, what is...
Whatever. Natasha line?
Okay. so bring that back, just so it's in place. Natasha Lime? Natasha greeted. Zila Lime? Zila clarified, leading to Natasha inspecting the load of work next to her colleagues. Leading to Natasha... Okay, I don't... Yeah, that looks like a line. Is this it? Zila clarified, leading to Natasha inspecting the load of work next to her colleague's hip. Okay. Natasha Lime? Zila Lime? Zila questioned, clearly looking for something to do out of boredom. Natasha Lime? Natasha clarified. Natasha Lime? Okay. Zila Lime? Zila answered instantly. Natasha Lime? Natasha persisted. Natasha persisted. Zila Lime? Okay. Where are you? What is this? Natasha nodded. Ah, I see. Natasha nodded. Natasha Lime? Zila Lime? Zila stated with a hint of sorrow in her voice. Whoa. The tension of the conversation was interrupted by the sound of the clinic entrance opening. Zila stated with a hint of sorrow in her voice. Alright. Okay. Of sorrow in her voice. The tension of the conversation was interrupted by the sound of the clinic entrance opening, entering another patient for Natasha to attend. Okay, there's a line after this. Natasha said, no. Natasha Lime? Natasha said, pull that back. Natasha Lime? Natasha said with a sigh. Okay. Zila Lime? She stated impatiently, getting to her feet. Natasha giggled. Natasha Lime? With that, Zila walked to the front and exited out into the open city. She had no idea what to do for a while, so she just walked to the nearby Goethe Hotel and planted herself on one of the steps. I'm gonna double check that. Should be absolutely sure that. Okay, it was correct. I do remember this. This was a pain in the ass. Because the spelling of this word does not seem like Goethe. It seems like Goethe or something like that. Why did I speak like in a British accent there? That was weird. Okay, yeah, I don't think that's anything of importance by any means. Oh, shit. Okay, so I gotta do this little trick. There we go. That might even be a little too far, honestly. Oh, yeah, that's way too far. Pull that back. Hey, Dawn. It's been a long time, but I lost everything I had from A to Z, so I couldn't get in touch any sooner. Oh, no, what happened? Herself on one of the steps. Oh, shit. Yeah, they just come back a lot more. On one of the steps. She paused to just listen, reminiscing of her days as a child in a very scary world with little resources to fill her belly. She was a wild child with no guidance before meeting Natasha and making a friend within her home in the orphanage. Oh my god. And making a friend within her home in the orphanage. A friend who... And making a friend within her home in the orphanage. A friend who had grown foggy to her memory over the years, disappearing one day without a single trace. She
A friend who had grown foggy to her memory over the years, disappearing one day without a single trace. She had...
I was kidnapped, S.A'd, stolen from, and hacked on every account I had, then made homeless for a full 2 months. Damn. I don't know what an S.A. is, but... S.A. I should know this. I was kidnapped. I hope that doesn't imply something really bad. Sexually assaulted. Oh, I see. Okay, it was exactly what I was thinking. Oh, I am so fucking sorry. That's fucked up. I hope that you got the person at least caught and put where he belongs. He or she, you never know. There's people that crazy out there. I'm just glad that you're actually safe. Probably a little traumatized, but at least you're alive and safe. It went on for 3 months and now the police won't do anything to help me. Yep. Sounds like our fucking... Sounds just like the police system. The judicial system is so fucking corrupt, it's not even funny. There's not... Yeah, that's fucked up, but sometimes that's just fucking life in a nutshell. I'm sorry to hear that, but there's not really much you can do when people don't want to fucking listen. It legit pisses me off. Disappearing one day without a single trace. She had felt abandoned, but over time... No. She had felt abandoned, but over time, she moved on and buried the hurt. What was that?
She had felt abandoned, but over time...
Okay, right there? Yep. God, this house is so fucking noisy. I know exactly what that noise is. That's my dad stepping past my room.
She had felt abandoned, but over time, she moved on and buried the hurt by taking up learning how to master the art of the scythe. That new road had eventually led her to That new road had eventually led her to Wildfire and to who she is now, up until the day 3 outsiders from
Oh boy.
That new road had eventually led her to Wildfire and to who she is now, up until the day 3 outsiders from beyond the sky came into her life as eternal something.
Yeah, I couldn't see the rest of the line. Pull that back.
Up until the day 3 outsiders from beyond the sky came into her life as eternal comrades. Then there was Bronya.
Alright. Man, why was I talking so noisily? My partner took me back and now I'm too scared to even go outside. Well, I hope that your partner is actually someone you can trust and they actually do help. I mean, I know it's so fucked up, but if the police don't want to do anything, all you can do at best is move on. I'm sorry that happened to you, but at least it's over. I just hope that you weren't, impregnated in the assault. So hopefully that didn't happen.
Then there was Bronya, someone she had seen as an enemy up until the layers beneath the image of Belobog's princess were peeled back and revealed.
What was that? While I'm monitoring, I need to turn monitoring off.
Layers beneath the image of Belobog's princess were peeled back and revealed.
Okay, what is that? Oh, that's just me clearing my throat. Well, I don't know. Forced pregnancy really isn't a true one. I mean, it may sound bad. I mean, I do not support abortion whatsoever. But I don't know. How do I explain this without sounding bad? I would rather have a child, like, in a way that it wasn't done horribly, rather than have to carry a child of someone who, you know, sexually assaulted me. You get what I mean? I don't want to abort the child, but I don't actually want to raise a child of a rapist. I know it's not the child's fault, but I don't know. That might be a case of where it's a blessing. I don't know. I don't know what to really say about that, because I would rather have a child, you know, that was, you know, planted, you know, through the way that it should be planted, rather than forcefully. And, ugh. Just, ugh.
Peeled back and revealed. She still couldn't fathom that,
Because that is one of the worst crimes, in my opinion. When you speak, Sparrow. When you force a child into a woman. That is something that should be done in a way that is true and through, like, actual love. Not in a way that violates and destroys the woman's, like, psyche. That is a disgusting thing to do to a woman. Second would be beating her. Like, I've never had a relationship, but I know for a fact I'd never do that. I have enough control. Nor would I ever want to hurt somebody else. I would never want to, like, you know, make someone else bleed unless it was my life. Like, if my life was on the line, you bet your ass I'm throwing all my fists and my thumbs into their fucking eyeballs. I'm fighting for my life. But if it's a case of someone, you know, where it's like a disagreement and we get mad at each other, I'm walking out of the room and I'm going for a walk. I have enough control over my anger to not do something like that. Because the R word is one of the worst things that was ever conjured in human history. Disgusting. And I know it's not the child's fault, but look at that as maybe a blessing. Because you want a child from the one who you love, not from someone who, you know, assaulted you.
she, beneath the image of Belobog's princess, were peeled back and revealed.
And I wouldn't even abort the child, I'd put it up for adoption. I just don't see how... I mean, maybe it is possible, but I personally just don't like the thought of, like a mother raising a child that was not even, like, put there by the actual father. That, like, the person that you're with. The person who violated you is disgusting. So I'd rather have a child from the one I love rather than from some random stranger who decided to, you know, scar you for life.
Beneath the image of Belobog's princess were peeled back and revealed. She still couldn't fathom that she and Bronya had shared the same home at one point.
But enough of bad things, let's talk about positive things. We're still in love each other like when we were going to try to do IVF. IVF.
According to NHS, in vitro fertilization is one of several techniques available to help people with fertility problems have a baby. During IVF, an egg is removed from the woman's ovaries and fertilized.
Okay, shut up. I don't want to get freaking banned. Even though it's just...
to grow and develop.
Even though it's basically sex ed. 10 days is removed from the woman's ovaries and fertilized. Oh, it's almost like a sperm bank. Except kind of backwards. Whatever works. I mean, you can try the natural way, you can try, you know, other like ways like that, I've never even heard about this. I'm being completely honest.
Point. She still couldn't fathom that she and Branya had shared the same home at one point, but the snow globe had proven enough evidence.
Stop. Also, if you don't understand what this is, then you haven't played Honkai Star Rail. In my opinion, one of the best mobile games out right now.
But the snow globe had proven enough evidence that the two were not
basically all you need to know is that Zila and Branya are two like different like people from opposite sides of the track. Like Branya was raised in royalty and she's like, you know, she's like, you know, taught to be respectful, not to, yeah, whatever. You get it. Like, she's royalty. Zila comes from, like, the side of, like, you know, poverty and all that stuff. Like, there's more to it, but basically these two are, like, you know, polar opposites, but in the end, they actually do come from the same place. They just didn't know it until at some point.
Had shared the same home at one point, but the snow globe had proven enough evidence that
and it is implied in the game that they do actually have feelings for each other. I mean, I played Honkai Impact, the game that actually has them in it as, you know, friends. Even though it does feel like more than friends at some points. But in Honkai Star Rail, there's literally a scene of them on top of, like, where they came from, like an orphanage. They're talking, and Zila says, I can't remember what she said, but she blushes. Like, she's, like, you know, realizing that she's, like, you know, got feelings for her. I'm like, I don't mind it. All for the gays. I don't give a shit. Hey. Hoyover's got balls.
Two had shared the same home at one point, but the snow globe had proven enough evidence that the two were not as different as they seemed. While they had started rough, over the many weeks of working toward reuniting...
Hang on. What was that?
Started rough, over the many weeks of working toward reuniting the overworld and underworld once again, they had connected as more than just simple comrades. Comrades would be an
Okay, that is quite the username, my friend.
Comrades would be an understatement of their current status. Zila had learned much about Branya's recollections of what she could remember from her past, as much as opened up about her past as well. And while the two had... Jesus Christ.
Okay, so I'm just going to do this little trick. We're hoping to... That's the best you can do. Adoption is not a bad thing. Like, people think adoption is such a bad thing, but no, it's not. If a mother does not want a child, or a mother and a father don't want a child, and they put it up for adoption, that child deserves a life. Like, I knew so many people in school that were through foster care, and it fucked them up big time. Like, foster care, like, the foster care they came from was horrible. Like, they didn't give a shit about the kids, they didn't, like, feed them correctly, they didn't treat them right. So, when kids are put up for adoption, it's giving them a fucking chance. So what's so fucking wrong with that? Give a child a life. It fucking pisses me off. Like, I am so grateful I actually, you know, was born into a family. Like, I couldn't ask for better parents. But, yeah, the whole thing with adoption, I'm like, what is the big deal with adoption? If the mother doesn't want the child, then the child deserves to have a chance. It's not their fault that they were put into a womb. Maybe it's not their fault that the fucking parents are dumb fucks that don't wear a fucking condom. That's the problem nowadays. And that's how kids are, that's how that new generation bullshit, that's why these kids are so fucking stupid. Because the parents don't give them what they need as parents. And it fucking pisses me off to no avail. Because I was raised to be respectful. I was raised to be, you know, responsible. I was raised to be good, you know, happy. And to be educated, for one thing. Like, when I was watching a video where these kids, these college students, keep that in mind, college students are being asked the most simple of questions, and they can't answer. Like, what, this was a trick question. What state is Utah in? They fucking answered a state. I'm like, oh my god. Like, okay, I'm not a geography buff, but at least I know my own country, for fuck's sake. I mean, some of these were just so simple. Like, how many dimes make $1? 10. That's no issue for me. Like, no big deal whatsoever. But these kids are fucking dumb. I'm like, what is wrong with our world right now? It's so fucking doomed, it's not even funny. I mean, there is those rare cases where we do have kids that are actually smart and actually do have good parents, but the majority nowadays are not looked after, they're not taught right, and that's why the kids of nowadays are either troublemakers, get girls pregnant way too soon, and so on and so forth. Adoption helps them feel loved and get a new level unknown. Yeah. And then there's the people that abuse adoption to have a beat bag. And past as well. And while the two had definitely been different peas of a pod, there was one thing they shared. Loss. Loss. What's this? Loss. Loss. Doesn't really matter, does it? Like, all this that I do, besides the reading aspect, all of this is self-taught. I have not gone to a school for editing. I have not gone to a school for, like, computer programming. I took a computer programming class in high school, but I did not get taught, like, how to edit audio and all that stuff. This is all from self-teaching myself and learning. Like, kids nowadays don't even know how to do the simplest shit like this. And it's sad. Like, I don't blame the kids for the problems. I blame the parents. It's the parents. It's like, was that last night? No, that was the other night. I'm slightly coaching my niece's, like, t-ball teams right now because, well, the fucking adults don't know how to fucking, do the right things for the kids. So, I have to literally tell the kids to get informations, go back to their spots, to not go after the ball when they don't need to go after the ball, to not fight, to stop throwing dirt, and stop yelling at each other. I'm like a freaking parent on the field literally telling these kids what to do. But the other night, now keep in mind I wasn't aware of this, but this is how bad kids are. At least where I live. Because I told a kid to basically get into his fucking spot, he fucking flipped me off. I'm like, I won't lie, I did the same fucking thing when my parents yelled at me. I went and closed my door and said, fuck yeah, fuck yeah, fuck yeah. We've all done that. You cannot lie, you've never done that. It has been done. You have closed your door and you have called your parents the most horrible crap you can imagine. I've been there. You've been there. We've all been there. Shared. It's just part of human. It's just part of, like, human nature. Branya? Okay, I need to pull this back a little bit. Oh, something you'll like. Me and my partner own a photography business, all self-taught. Photography is all about having a vision. Like, just having a good eye for the right things to take pictures of. That's all photography is about. Like, sure, you can go into Photoshop and, like, enhance it and all that stuff, and you should. But photography is all about just having a good eye. Like, one of the coolest things I ever caught was this one picture of lightning. It was so fucking cool, too. Because there's a foam pole that goes up right outside, and I wanted to catch lightning, and it's hard to do. You have to time it perfectly. I didn't have shutter speed on or anything. I was literally waiting for the time for like a flash of lightning and just quick. Psst. Well, I got it. I got a picture of lightning, but it is such a fucking cool picture. It can I download it? I think I can download it. That should be on my Facebook profile. But I don't want people to see my Facebook profile, so I'm going to go ahead and that. Just give me a sec. I haven't been on Facebook in a long time because Facebook's just toxic anymore. I have been on, like, you know, groups and stuff, but that's about it. Okay. Is this even... Could you please go the hell away? Thank you. Is this even still my account password? I mean, this is how long I haven't been on Facebook. Now I gotta figure out where everything is. Okay, that'd be under my pictures, which would be somewhere. Okay, account. Oh my god, they have changed it so fucking much. That's my friend's video. Marketplace. Jesus Christ. I just need my profile. Please. And thank you. Thank you. What the fuck is that? No thanks. Okay, pictures. No. Details that featured. Oh my god, it should be like right here. Yes, leave. Let me just see if I can't find that picture. It's somewhere in my photos. Somewhere. That's the key. That's the key word. My photos. Oh, sweet Jesus Christ. Oh, I know what that's for. That was for that time when we got almost ripped off. Okay, which one is it? Right there. Does that cover that? It does. I just need to make sure no, like, private stuff is showing. Just double check everything. Yeah, looks like nothing. There you are. Where did the display go? There it is. That one. That is the coolest picture I've ever got because it goes perfectly with the pole. It's like it bends right where that light is and goes straight down. That is not edited or anything. That is a real picture that I caught. That is one of my best pictures I've ever gotten. Like, I've gotten other pictures of lightning, but that is the coolest one because it follows the pole. And catching lightning, not easy. Very hard. Like, I've caught these ones, but look at how blurry it is. Man, we had quite the party that night. But, yeah. That picture I'm really, really proud of. I'm really proud of that picture because it's not easy to catch lightning bolts. It's actually really, really hard. You got to time it perfect. Like, not very many people can catch lightning. You have to have a fast shutter speed. You have to have a good eye. You have to be quick. Like, the easiest way to catch lightning is to have, like, a motion camera. Like, it, like, can sense motion. It has a fast shutter speed. You have to have fast shutter speed, and you have to have, like, motion capture, because then it catches it in, like, you know, multiple frames. I took photography in my school, like, for, was it 3 years or was it 2 years? I think it was 2 years.
Loss. Bronya had lost her parents to the eternal freeze, but had managed to make it to the underworld after being discovered by Silvermane guards searching for survivors. Her cries had alerted the soldiers, and she had immediately been taken to the orphanage for safety and proper care. Given the technology needed to identify someone by fingerprints or
this one was a pain in the ass.
Given the technology hadn't
I am so proud of that picture, though. Like, I've taken pictures of people, I've taken pictures of wilderness. Like, I have a really good eye for when it comes to things like nature, sunsets, stuff like that.
Given the technology needed to identify someone by fingerprints or DNA hadn't existed at the time. Fuck me in the ass. Given the technology...
If you can't tell, I was getting mad.
Given the technology needed...
Stop. I think there's a little too much of a gap right here anyway, so I need to pull it back a little bit.
Given the technology needed to identify someone by fingerprints or DNA hadn't existed at the time, Bronya had just been taken. Fucking balls and... Ugh. Why is this line so hard? Given the technology needed to identify someone by fingerprints or DNA hadn't existed at the time... Why am I getting tripped upon existed? Existed, you dumb shitball!
I was getting mad. I was getting so frustrated.
Given the technology needed to identify someone by fingerprints or DNA hadn't existed at the time, Bronya had just been taken in and raised, and to that very day, her true family name remains a mystery. Zila shared a very similar tale, except for the fact...
How funny, we're actually talking about adoption in this story. That's actually kind of funny.
That very similar tale, except for the fact that she was born in the underworld. No, except for the fact that she was born in the underworld. She had been an accident in her...
Now, none of this is canon in the actual game, but it is pretty close.
Except for the fact that she was born in the underworld. Except for the fact that she was born in the underworld. She had been an accident in her real mother's eyes, and had nearly aborted Zila, up until the doctors persuaded her otherwise. Zila's true mother had been very young and far from ready for her child, her pregnancy having been forced, but she had at least had the heart to give Zila a life.
Like, I'm not kidding you, that is a total fucking coincidence. I wrote this like a month ago or something like that. I heard something I didn't like right there. That's actually kind of funny. But it just goes to show you, I don't agree with that shit. There's a lot of stories I've written that deal with like adoptions.
Zila's true mother had been very young and far from ready for her child, her pregnancy having been forced, but she had at least had the heart to give Zila a life. She had birthed Zila and signed her off to the orphanage without even giving her child a name. It hadn't taken long for her to be adopted, though, an underworld family that had been looking to raise a child accepting her with open arms. They did, and had given their daughter as much love and care as they could, up until disaster struck. Just double check.
Of course, it's me. I gotta
Okay,
put
we're
the
fine.
disaster in
Good.
the freaking story. God, I love it.
Zila had only been 7 years old when her adoptive father was killed in a mining accident, and only a month later, her mother had passed away from an unknown illness. Zila had cried.
The hell? Zila had cried. I like whistled.
What? Zila had cried. what the fuck was that? Cried. Zila had cried and ran into the streets screaming. Zila had cried and ran into the streets screaming after seeing the sight of her mother dead in her rocking chair. Losing her father had been hard enough, but losing her mother shortly after...
Hang on.
Cried and ran into the streets screaming after seeing the sight of her mother dead in her rocking chair. Losing her father had been hard enough, but losing her mother shortly after, there had been no words to describe the pain that had struck the child's heart that day. With nowhere to go, the people who had come to her aid... God damn it.
Pull that back.
With nowhere to go, the people who had come to her aid upon hearing her deafening cries of anguish had led her back to the orphanage. Zila hadn't talked to anyone and had been picked on by other kids for being weird and whiny all the time. And having grown tired of the insults, one day she snapped. She attacked the main bully who had taunted her and beat him to where he was bleeding from his mouth, not holding back, and releasing all of her grief on his face. Eventually, she had been pulled off by nearby staff, but Zila had had no remorse for the bully. He wore 2 shiners for 2 weeks, and within that time, nobody had dared to approach or even befriend her. Then came the day that the underworld and overworld's connection was severed. It had been...
Oops.
And the was severed. It had been the day that everything changed, and the orphanage had become
I need to save before something bad happens. Save. Yep.
Okay. And the orphanage had become an uninhabitable environment. Food and water became scarce. Every orphan began to fear for their lives, and the will to live became a game of fucking my life. And the will to live became and the will to live became a game of finding a needle in a haystack. The needle was food or water, and the haystack was the entirety of Rivet Town's darkest alleys, dumpsters, and streets. The orphans would sneak out in teams and wander through the city in search of anything, but Zila would be excluded each time, making her task all the more impossible. Whoa. She'd find empty wrappers, cans, and crumbs the majority of the time, but her desperation would keep her going even if she'd find nothing. Then one day, she discovered something that she could have only described as a miracle. A bucket filled with clean water by the well outside of the orphanage. However, there was an obstacle in her way.
I can hear it. It's my tongue being a dick.
However, there was an obstacle in her way, and seriously? However, there was an obstacle.
It's a perfect take, and then I had to just fuck everything up.
There was an obstacle in her way. However, there was an obstacle in her way, and thinking she needed to fight for it, fought tooth and nail for her prize. That obstacle had been an old man that couldn't have even matched Zila's speed or agility. And up until the day she went to the clinic for her scratch, had she seen the damage she'd caused. On another bed had rested the same old man, coughing and breathing as if he had been on his deathbed. In that moment, something had sparked in Zila, and from that day had always left water for others who may need it in the bucket. Through that choice had been how she had met and befriended the very friend that was foggy to her memory anymore. She'd come to her serving of the water, only to have found another occupant already getting their portion. Strangely, she hadn't recognized the orphan and had... What is wrong with you today? I'm busy. Strangely, she hadn't recognized the orphan and had assumed her a citizen of the city. However, one glance at the clothing they had been wearing proved that they had been from the orphanage.
Okay, pull that back.
However, one glance at the clothing they had been wearing proved that they had been from the orphanage, so Zila had decided to ask who they were out of curiosity. She'd called out and asked for their name, but all she had managed to do was frighten and make the Tim.
Okay. Looks like I fucked up again.
But all she had managed to do was frighten and make the timid child run away. Zila had attempted to call her back, but had failed at even getting her message across. She had just decided to let it go, up until the day when... But had failed at even getting her message across. She had just decided to let it go, up until the day when she had spotted the same orphan in the orphanage. She had wanted to approach and confront them, but hadn't wanted to just scare them off again. Therefore, she had decided to approach them in a way that could make them not run away immediately. She had walked up and simply greeted them with a hello, and upon them making eye contact, and upon them having made eye contact with Zila, they had jumped in fright. However, Zila had been ready for a reaction as such, having acted quickly to calm the situation. Kid Zila Lime? Zila had said. The orphan had refrained from acting, but Zila had said. The orphan had refrained from acting, but still had looked as frightened as a puppy being introduced to a new home. Zila hadn't been able to understand why they had been so afraid of her. Was that right? Zila hadn't been able to understand why they had been. Zila hadn't been able to understand why they had been so afraid of her. Zila hadn't been able to understand why they had been so afraid of her, but she had done her best to not intimidate them. Zila Lime? Kid Zila Lime? She had greeted. A blank manifested upon the memory. Zila couldn't remember the name of...
Oh, by the way, Don, I'm actually I don't know if you're aware, but I'm actually reduxing one of my old readings for Halloween this year. I'm redoing Reborn. I already have part 1 all done. Now it's just a matter of going through, kind of fixing a few things, and... Yep.
Zila couldn't remember the name of the only friend she had ever had in that place, and she couldn't figure out why. She thought deeply, doing her best to clear the fog cloaking her doing her best to clear the fog cloaking the memory, but nothing came. It felt odd to her that she couldn't recollect the name, but didn't want... Oh my god, my fucking tongue is noisy. There, you giant son of a bitch. She thought deeply, but didn't want... It felt...
Oh, oops.
It felt odd to her that she couldn't recollect the name, but didn't want... She thought deeply, doing her best to clear the...
Wait, what? Oh, we're clear back here.
Fog. Doing her best to clear the fog cloaking the memory, but nothing came. It felt odd to her. She thought deeply, doing her best to clear the fog cloaking the memory, but nothing came. It felt odd to her that she couldn't recollect the name, but didn't want to give herself a headache. So she decided to leave it alone. She got back to her feet and began to walk again, watching for any tribulations along her trekking. To her disappointment, no action came across her path, causing her to reminisce even more about her days after the fragmentum had reached the orphanage, causing Rivertown to be abandoned and forgotten. While it had been forgotten by history, Zila had never forgotten her days in that city from her childhood to her growth into a young adult. As she wandered unconsciously beyond the borders of Boulder Town, young adult. As she wandered unconsciously beyond the borders of Boulder Town, she saw images of her childhood along the walkway, playing games like hopscotch, tag, hide and seek, and just laughing in absolute carefree joy. It made her smile. She wished she could go back to those carefree days and not have to deal with all the business that comes with being a member of Wildfire. But alas, was But alas was the cruelty of the game. But alas was the cruelty of the game of life. She couldn't say her life was too cruel, though. After all, she was slowly making a difference in a world that had been fractured alongside Bronya. That was definitely something she could be proud of and always would be, even if the effects of the eternal freeze never depleted in her lifetime. Even if the effects of the eternal freeze never depleted in her lifetime. The fight was far from over, but the future of Belobog was looking brighter than ever before. But the future of Belobog was looking brighter than ever before. But the future of Belobog was looking brighter than ever before. Upon stopping, she was surprised when she looked up. Not far ahead, she could see the gate to the entrance of Rivettown, and like a beacon, the orphanage stuck out like a sore thumb high above the lower streets of the city.
Really? Come on.
And like a beacon, the orphanage stuck out like a sore thumb high above the lower streets of the city. She gasped at the...
Yeah, I hate this word. Gasp.
She gasped at the fact that she hadn't noticed that she'd wandered this far. But she gasped at the fact that she hadn't noticed that she'd wandered this far. But the more she stared at her old home, the more she was persuaded to continue further. The majority of Rivettown was safe now, nor was she worried about... The majority of Rivettown was safe now, nor was she worried about any of the monsters, and given nothing bad was happening right now, she decided to just continue on. See the lime? She said to herself, walking forward and opening the gate, and sliding open the gate. The same eerie silence that her old and opening the...
Okay, I need to go see if the pooch needs to be taken out. Did I save? I think I saved. Yep. God, I swear my memory's getting worse with time. she needed to go outside. She's an old girl, so makes sense. Alright, let's see.
Gate. Walking forward and sliding open the gate.
Okay.
The same eerie silence that her old residence had carried. The same eerie silence that her old residence had carried ever since the Fragmentum's intrusion flooded her eardrums, causing a slight chill to slither down her spine. As a precaution, she tightened her grip on her scythe and entered into a state of full focus and alert, moving towards the orphanage.
Alright.
She was at the building in no time. She was at the building in no time. Oh. She was at the building in little time, knowing this place like the back of her hand. And upon meeting the area, was flooded with memories of the past. Spectre-like images. And upon meeting the area, was flooded with memories of the past. Spectre-like images of herself manifested, appearing alone and
This is reminding me of Silent Hill.
appearing alone and sad, and Zila immediately knew why. She gasped lightly, remembering the day of her return to this place. After her adoptive mother had passed. She remembered just sitting down on the swing and going into a blank state, hence why the ghostly version of herself looked so zombified. As if the mini her had caught on, she faded away, leading Zila to take a moment to just breathe. Zila Lime?
Okay. I'm gonna take those out. Get those clicks out, even though it doesn't really matter.
That was all she had to say, then started her way up into the orphanage. The inside was decrepit and worn down, pinging her heart at the sight of her once home, now lost to history as nothing but a memory.
Yep, right there.
Worn down, pinging her heart at the sight of her once home, now lost to history as nothing but a memory. Walking down the long hall, she saw more manifestations of old thoughts, watching as ghostly orphans ran from out of a room and past her. Zila recognized every one of them, and upon seeing that one lone girl was all that was left in the room they had vacated, she knew which memory this was. Zila Lime? She confirmed. She thought about calling it there, but felt compelled to at least try. But felt compelled to at least try the only reason she'd come there in the first place. Zila Lime? She proceeded. Like that card that just went by. She proceeded, finding said place in little time. While it was a mess, she knew exactly where she needed to go, remembering the spot very well. That was strange, seeing she remembered that, but couldn't remember anything about the only friend she ever made in that place. That made no sense in her head. Oops. That made no sense in her head. She met the spot and waited for something to happen, but all she was met with was silence. She waited a little longer, but didn't hold her breath, counting on anything. But all she was met with was silence. She waited a little longer, but...
God, fucking noisy.
with was silence. She waited a little longer, but didn't hold her breath, counting on anything to happen. After a long minute and nothing happening. After a long minute and
Okay, Haley.
After a long minute and nothing happened.
From here?
After a long After a long minute and nothing happening. What? Another long minute and nothing happened, leading her to calling. Another long minute and nothing happened, leading her to calling it there. See the lime? She stated to herself. Leading her to calling it there. See the lime? She stated to herself. With her many
Okay, what is this?
stated to herself.
Okay, so I have to pull this back.
Stated to herself. With her mini rant concluded, she turned and left the room. While she had not gotten the answer she had been seeking, it still had been nice to see her old home that she'd inhabited up. It had been nice to see her old home that had been inhabited.
Oh, I was so mad. Apparently.
It still had been nice to see her old home that she'd inhabited. It still had been nice to see her old home that she'd inhabited up to just before being recruited by Oleg.
Okay, hang on. Up to right here?
That she'd inhabited up to just before being
Okay, let's see that might
before
work.
that she'd inhabited up to just before being recruited by Oleg.
Okay. I don't know. Let me check. Nope.
That she'd inhabited up to just before being recruited by Oleg. Upon exiting the building, back to the stairway that led back to... Fuck.
Oh boy.
Upon exiting the building, back to the stairway that led back to the streets below, she turned to glance at the orphanage one more time. Upon exiting the building, back to the stairway that led back to the streets below, she turned to glance at the orphanage one more time. The memories flooded her mind with nostalgia, even shedding a tear, causing her to wince in surprise. She hadn't shed a tear in so long, causing her to wince in surprise. She hadn't shed a tear in so long that she couldn't even remember. So to shed a tear at a past long gone had
Oh boy. Yep, I was getting mad. It gets annoying after a while.
So to shed a tear at a past long gone had really made her wonder why she had. She decided to wave it off. She decided to wave it off as nothing major and just started her way down. She decided to wave it off as nothing major. She decided to wave it off as nothing major and just started her way down, wiping away the single drop. Okay. Need to go down now. Where is the cursor? There it is.
Okay, how long of a pause is that? Let's see, we're about 20. Okay, so 18 seconds about right there. Then we end at, whoa! What the fuck? Oh my god. Okay, so 20 minutes, 18 seconds to... Yeah, that's a bit of a long pause. So 18 to about right there. Let's do something like that. That's okay. I don't know if you saw the picture that I showed you, but yeah, that's the picture I'm most proud of.
Once she had reached the bottom street.
Oh, we're not done yet. Had a feeling.
Once she had reached the bottom street, she turned back for one last glance. Then, once her nostalgic thoughts had subsided, started back to Boulder Town with a heavy weight on her mind. Started back to Boulder Town with a heavy weight on her mind.
There we go.
Pause. Okay. We're doing good. Not too bad. Where are we at? Oh, yeah, we're doing fine. That was to be expected.
Alright, so let's shut all this up. Let's see where we at about back here. I can already tell that's way too long of a pause. Oh yeah, way too long. About right there-ish.
Upon walking through the door to Bronya's office the next morning, it was clear Zila wasn't her casual self. Upon Bronya's gaze meeting her consultant,
Okay, pull that back.
in some office the next morning, it was clear Zila wasn't her casual self. Upon Bronya's gaze meeting her consultant's own, she immediately expressed a look of concern, noticing the clear, unsteady demeanor her partner was clearly expressing. She put aside the form she was currently filling out and walked up to Zila in a worrisome manner. Bronya line?
Okay.
Bronya dressed. Zila line?
Okay.
Zila attempted to assure. Bronya shook her head at the clear lie. Bronya line? She pointed out. Zila line? Zila cussed under her breath. Zila line? Bronya Lime? Yeah. Zila shook her head in refusal at the idea of Nat extorting her.
Okay, let's cut that out. Bring this back just a little bit.
Zila shook her head in refusal at the idea of Nat extorting her, but also knew Bronya wasn't.
Okay, pull that back.
Also knew Bronya wasn't kidding or bluffing. Zila Lime?
Okay.
Zila defended. Zila Lime? Yeah, we're gonna put that as 2. Watch me not even do it. Bingo. Bronya's plan worked. She knew if she threatened Zila enough, she'd just blurt out the truth. And now she had her corner. And now she had her cornered.
Hang on, there was something in the back.
Plan worked. She knew if she threatened Zila enough, she'd just blurt out the truth. And now she had her cornered. Bronya Lime? Bronya asked in a stern voice as sharp as the tip of Zila's scythe. Bronya asked in a stern voice as sharp as the tip of Zila's scythe. A grunt escaped Zila's.
Okay.
Mouth. A grunt escaped Zila's mouth in defeat. Mouth, could you be any more fucking noisy?
Don't ask it.
A grunt escaped Zila's mouth in defeat. Zila Lime? Bronya didn't deny her claim, knowing she was telling the truth just by the sound of her voice. However, what she couldn't figure out was why a trip to Rivettown's orphanage would have her like this. Bronya Lime? Bronya analyzed. Zila paused, wondering what all she could tell Bronya about her little trip down memory lane last night. Zila paused, wondering what all
Okay, we're gonna have to do something like this.
Zila paused, wondering what all she could tell Bronya about her little trip down memory lane last night. She knew a few things about her past, but fucking crime. She knew a few things about her past, but saying she went there to recollect a memory, it sounded stupid and obscene in her head. However, she knew Bronya wasn't there to make fun of or harass her, and could see the clear worry on her friend's face. She just decided to suck it up and tell her everything.
Okay, more lines.
Zila Lime?
Alright, what do we got here?
Bronya smiled at the confession, but didn't find it silly or childish at all. Bronya Lime? Bronya replied in a supportive tone.
Okay. What is this?
Zila smiled in relief and nodded in agreement.
Pull this back a lot.
Tone.
Nope, still too much.
Bronya replied in a supportive tone. Zila smiled in relief and nodded in agreement.
Better.
Zila Zila Lime? She
Excuse me.
agreed. Bronya Lime? Bronya guessed. Zila Lime? Bronya Lime? Zila Lime?
Okay, next.
Zila paused and thought about Bronya's analysis for a second, and when she came to a conclusion on the matter, she gasped. It made complete sense, especially given the abrupt disappearance of her friend. What? Can you fuck off, please? Especially given the abrupt disappearance of her friend. What? It made complete sense, especially given the abrupt disappearance of her friend had played a huge toll on her life, up until Oleg and Wildfire became a part of her life. The question was, what was the solution?
Okay, I think I know what.
Whoa. Zila Lime? Bronya turned away and walked up towards her desk, grabbing her rifle and returning to Zila's location. Bronya Lime?
Okay.
Bronya giggled at the statements. Bronya Lime?
Alright.
Zila smiled and chuckled. Zila Lime?
Ouch.
Bronya smiled, and with confidence in her steps, they made their way out of the office.
Okay, I think this is a no pause.
Alright, little pause right here.
Okay, so something like that.
Like that. The return to the orphanage had felt less inviting. The two feeling...
Alright, let me save real quick. Just to get that out of the way.
As if the return to the orphanage had felt less inviting. The two feeling as if they were standing before the maw of a massive beast. Luckily, Zila hadn't been greeted by any ghostly manifestations of her young self, but she was no less intimidated, unaware of what was to await her in the next trip down. I hate this fucking line. Unaware of what was to await her in the next trip down memory lane. They had been standing in the same spot for a long 5 minutes, seeing even Bronya was on her own nostalgic trip. She may not remember a good majority of her years there. But she still remembered a few bits and pieces, and that was enough to make her stop and stare.
Stop and stare. Sorry.
Remembered a few bits and pieces, and that was enough to make her stop and stare. Zila felt her heart racing in her chest as she took in a deep breath. Zila felt her heart racing in her chest as she took in a deep breath and slowly let it out, catching Bronya's attention. catching Bronya's as she took in a deep breath and slowly let it out, catching Bronya's attention. Catching Bronya's attention. Bronya put a hand on Zila's catching Bronya's attention. Bronya put a hand on Zila's shoulder, assuring her that she was there and everything was okay. Zila had jumped at the contact, but upon seeing it was just her comrade attempting to ease her fear, she calmed and prepared herself for progression. Zila Lime?
Okay.
Zila stated, moving towards the stairway up to the entrance of the building. Bronya followed close behind with her rifle armed and ready for any threats, stepping through the entrance and eyeing the rotting infrastructure of the place she once called home. Her memories were distant and foggy, but a feeling of familiarity surrounded her like an aura. Unlike Zila, she felt a warm presence as she walked further, remaining on full alert shall any unexpected enemy remaining on full alert shall any unexpected enemies creep out from any remaining on full alert shall any remaining on full alert shall any unexpected enemies creep out from any corners. The trek eventually came to a place that even Bronya recognized well. The cafeteria. Zila Lime? Zila confirmed. Bronya Lime? Bronya asked. Zila Lime? Bronya put a hand on her Bronya put a hand to her chin. Bronya put a hand to her chin.
Okay, what do we got here?
Yeah, that's right. Bronya put a hand to her chin. Bronya put a hand to her chin, brainstorming any way that could progress the current situation. She hadn't come here just to leave empty-handed like Zila had the night before. She planned to resolve this one way or another, even if it took all day. Bronya Line? Bronya stated. Zila Line? Zila questioned. Bronya Line? Zila took a second to think hard. Perhaps Bronya was right, and she was missing something important. She racked her mind for any specific details on the meetup, but came up with nothing except the same things over and over. The cafeteria, spotting them amongst the crowd, approaching and asking their name. Approaching and asking their name, nothing else. What was missing? Approaching and asking their name, nothing else. What was missing?
Oops, Control C. I need to kind of push that out a little bit more.
Approaching and asking their name, nothing else. What was missing? Zila Line? Zila exclaimed in irritation. Bronya Line? Zila exclaimed in irritation. Bronya Line? Bronya commanded. Zila took a deep breath and calmed her. Zila took a deep breath and calmed her nerves, nodding her head and meeting Bronya's gaze. Nodding her head and meeting Bronya's gaze. nodding her head and meeting Bronya's gaze. Zila Lime? She apologized. Zila nodded her head and calmed, deciding to take a seat. Deciding to take a seat. Deciding to take a seat. Deciding to take a seat.
I'm not sure why I retook that.
Zila Lime? Bronya didn't argue, knowing Zila needed some rest. Zila also hadn't been wrong about her having more patience, having been raised. Zila also hadn't been wrong about her having more patience, having been raised to have an unbound amount of it. Time passed and nothing happened. Oh, there's a pause there. Time passed and nothing happened, up until Zila woke up from her nap. Oh, there's a pause there. Out of it. Time passed and nothing happened, up until Zila woke up from her nap. Upon opening her eyes, the first thing she looked for was Bronya, seeing she was technically acting as a bodyguard for the Supreme Guardian of Belobog at the moment. However, upon looking around, Bronya was nowhere in sight. Bronya was nowhere in sight. Immediately driving Zila into action. Zila Lime? She called out, only to hear nothing except echoes. Zila was in full panic mode now. Moving to her feet. Zila was in full panic mode now, moving to her feet and using her quantum energy to speed through every room, hall, and corridor. Every room had the same result, empty and lifeless, and drove Zila into even further panic, yelling out for her and receiving no response. Upon returning to the cafeteria, she made a discovery that calmed her nerves a little bit, but still had her in a panic. Bronya's rifle was nowhere to be found, meaning she at least was armed, but the fact remained that she was still missing.
Okay. Get rid of that. That's my friend, Dawn.
Was still missing. Zila had checked every bit of the inside.
Oh. So something like maybe this.
So the fact remained that she was still missing. Zila had checked every bit of the inside, so the only place left to check where she could be was outside. That was even worse in her mind, given seeing Rivettown was massive, and it wasn't entirely ridden. Even worse in her mind, seeing Rivettown was massive, and it wasn't entirely ridden of rogue robots and monsters. She needed to find Bronya. She needed to find Bronya, so she started towards the outside of the building. She started with the very front area due to it being smaller in diameter. No.
Oh, it bugged. Oh, you better. Well, at least I saved. See, this is why you save. Because this kind of shit can happen. It's a bug. And I'm not dealing with it. Nice try, Audacity. But yeah, I'm not waiting for your ass. You can kiss my ass. I just barely saved, so it's not that big of a deal. Not necessarily, anyway. Okay, I said thank you. It's stupid is what it is. It should have the autosave, so that's a good sign. Okay, are we gonna behave? It'll take a sec. How long have I been streaming for? About almost 2 hours. Okay, yeah, I deserve a little bit of a break for a minute. She needed to find Branya, so she started towards the outside of the building. She started with the very front area due to it being... Okay. She started with the very front area due to it being small in diameter. No dice. So she moved to the opposite side. She used the exit in the cafeteria to get to the other side, and upon stepping out, was immediately relieved. Branya was next to the well on her knees. Zila let out a long breath of relief and wiped the sweat from her forehead, walking up to her comrade. However, upon getting closer, she could hear her muttering something to herself, as if she was talking to someone. But there was nobody to be... Hang on, did I miss something? I think I missed something. However, upon getting closer, she could hear her muttering something to herself, walking up to her comrade. However, upon getting closer, she could hear her muttering something to herself, as if she was talking to someone. But there was nobody to be seen except them. Zila Lime? Okay. Zila asked. Zila asked. Zila asked. Branya turned to Zila at the mention of her name and addressed her strange behavior. Branya line? Nope, we're not keeping those in because they mess with the noise gate. Fuck off. Branya line? She explained. Zila line? Okay, I can get rid of that. Zila questioned. Oh, God. Is this when my shoulders started killing me? Zila questioned. Zila questioned. Branya line? Because one of them had my shoulder hurting. Branya's gaze turned. Branya's gaze turned towards just past Zila. No. Branya's gaze turned towards just past Zila. Following was something even more bizarre. Branya's gaze turned towards just past Zila. Following was something even more bizarre. Branya line? Branya yelled, getting up and starting... to run back towards the cafeteria entrance. Getting up and starting back... Oh, you piece of fucking... Okay, Sparrow, no need to get that mad. Branya yelled, getting up and starting to run back towards the cafeteria entrance. Okay, there's the toilet. Oh, man, that hurts. Yep, it was my shoulder. My shoulder started to freaking hurt because I don't know why, but
back towards the cafeteria entrance. Bronya yelled, getting up and starting.
oh shit. Did I not? Wait, what?
To
Wait, what? I need something for that. This is clear at the bottom. Okay. Bazaar, cafeteria entrance. Okay, hang on.
getting up and starting.
Getting up and starting back towards the cafeteria entrance. Okay. Zila was beyond bewildered.
Bronya yelled, getting up and starting to run back toward the cafeteria entrance.
Oh, I see. That's fine.
Zila was beyond bewildered, attempting to stop Bronya, but failing. Zila Lime?
Okay, I can work around that.
She took off after Bronya. No, I gotta sit up. God, got a kink in my shoulder. She took off after Bronya. She took off after Bronya, not planning on...
Oh my god.
Not planning on losing her again. She found her shortly upon making it back to the cafeteria. Once again on her knees. Once again on her knees and talking to someone she couldn't see. Bronya line?
Alright.
Bronya assured to the air. Zila was slowly starting to become annoyed by this behavior.
Pull that back.
Zila was slowly starting to become annoyed by this behavior, but somehow knew Bronya wasn't messing with her. Bronya wasn't the type to joke like this, and was more the serious type about everything. If that was so, then who was she talking to? Zila Lime? Zila surrendered. Zila Lime?
Okay, that's a two-take line.
Bronya had turned back to Zila. Bronya had turned back to Zila. Bronya had turned back to Zila, clearly lost on what she had just said. Bronya line? It just said. Bronya line?
That's fine.
Bronya asked. Bronya asked. Jesus Christ.
What is that?
Zila Lime? Zila Lime? Zila clarified. Bronya Lime? Bronya stated, turning back to her invisible friend. Bronya Lime? A few seconds passed up until Bronya returned with a response that she hadn't expected. Bronya Lime? Bronya explained. Zila was baffled, but upon hearing those words, she felt something spike in her mind.
Back.
Those words. Okay. They're going to take me away. That's Kid Bronya line? Kid Zila line? Kid Bronya line? Kid Zila line? A memory. A memory. A very faint one. Something was special about this girl. Something was special about this girl. Something was special about this girl, and Zila wasn't sure why. Bronya line? Bronya asked. Zila line? Zila confessed. Bronya nodded and turned back to the invisible girl. Bronya line?
What is that?
Oh. Another few seconds passed, and upon the... Another few seconds passed, and upon the response... Another few seconds passed, and upon the response, Zila was starting to see... And upon the response, Zila was starting to see a picture form. Bronya line? Where am I? Another spike struck her mind like lightning. And yet again, another spike struck her mind like lightning. And yet again, the words reflected with familiarity. Kid Bronya line?
Okay.
Kid Zila line?
Alright.
Another memory. A painful one.
That was a plosive, I think. Oh yeah, definitely. So we got plosive here.
A painful one. This mystery girl had to be the one she was assuming. The absence of the name being there again, and the agony of her pleas giving full clarification that the two were once close. Zila line? She said to herself. Bronya raised an eyebrow. Bronya line? Bronya questioned. Zila line?
Okay, that's fine.
Bronya.
Bronya?
Bronya was bewildered, knowing this was what they were here for. Knowing this was what they were here for. However, upon Zila knowing this was what they were here for. However, upon Zila speaking next, she knew. However, upon Zila speaking next, she knew that the memories that her partner had recollected had truly affected her. Had truly affected her. Had truly affected her. Had truly affected her.
Make sure I didn't cut anything.
That her partner had recollected had truly affected her.
Okay. What is this?
Long Zila line.
Alright.
Raw emotion was coming out in every sentence, and while Zila couldn't see it, Bronya could tell that she had managed to convince her. A young voice broke out among the convince her. A young voice broke out among the room, a voice that Zila definitely remembered upon it meeting her ears. A voice that Zila definitely remembered upon it meeting her ears. Kid Bronya line? Zila line? Zila promised. A silence followed, but after a minute or so, the burning question that Zila had been searching for had been solved. Approaching Zila, the little girl manifested, revealing their identity and spiking Zila's mind again. Zila couldn't believe her eyes once she saw the figure before her. Upon the utterance of the identity of the girl, Branya immediately gasped. Her memories beginning to flood like spillways. Fucking kill me!
No, don't do that.
Upon the utterance of Upon the utterance of the identity of the girl, Branya immediately gasped. Her memories beginning to flood like spillways draining into a reservoir. Her memories beginning to flood like spillways draining into a reservoir.
Let back.
Her memories beginning to flood like spillways draining into a reservoir.
Welcome back, Dawn.
It couldn't be. But then her foggy memories cleared and she remembered everything. She had had a single friend in that place, and only in that moment remembered their name. And only in that moment remembered their name.
Okay.
Branya line? The day she was taken by Kakalia was coming back to her now. She had screamed at and blamed everything on Zila. She had screamed at and blamed everything on Zila and had held a grudge up until she
Oh my fucking god.
and had held a grudge up until she eventually forgot her memories of living in the orphanage. The two had been inseparable and became something more than friends, but more like siblings that defended one another. Zila had done everything in her power to stop her from being taken, but she had only been a child and powerless against a wall of adults. She really couldn't blame her for an inevitable conclusion, and was ready to let go. She really couldn't blame her for an inevitable conclusion, and was ready to let go of the grudge that she'd held for far too long behind a cloud of forgotten memories. God damn it.
Okay, what is this?
The young Branya stated. Following that, she faded to nothing but a mist, and Zila and Branya were left to think about the... She faded to nothing
Okay, pull it back.
but a... And Zila and Branya were left to think about the unbelievable realization they just met. The two didn't move for a while, up until Zila had finally gathered her thoughts enough to walk over and offer Branya a hand back up onto her feet. She accepted and got back up. Next to Zila, saying only one thing out of the cluster of thoughts currently running through her head. Saying,
Oh my god. I'm fine with that.
only Branya line? She stated simply. Zila just nodded and walked along. She stated simply. Zila just nodded and walked alongside Branya out of the building for the last time.
Okay, another pause.
1 week later, Branya sat down
Save. Okay, it didn't, yeah.
The pen. Branya sat down the pen that she'd been writing with for the past half hour, her wrist having developed a slight cramp from the endless labor it had endured. She stacked the papers and set them off to the side, allowing herself a minute to rest and stretch before going back into more torture. Standing up, she walked over to the window behind her chair and just stared out at her empire, wondering how in the world she was going to do what her mother had managed for decades. Her thoughts were interrupted upon the sound of her office door opening, entering Zila with their usual order of coffee during the entering Zila with their usual order of coffee during the morning work hours. Branya smiled upon seeing her colleague and girlfriend, and as a proper way of greeting her, walked down to assist her beloved. Branya Lime? Branya said, taking the order of Joe and taking a good sip. Zila Lime? Zila explained. Branya sat down her morning juice and giggled at the seriousness in Zila's voice. Voice crack. Branya sat down her morning juice and giggled at the seriousness in Zila's voice. Excuse me. Branya confirmed nicely, wrapping her arm. No. Branya confirmed nicely. No. Branya confirmed nicely. Branya confirmed nicely, wrapping her arms around Zila and giving her a light kiss. Branya Lime? Zila smiled in the embrace. Kissing Branya back. Zila smiled in the embrace, kissing Branya back. Zila Lime? The two pecked lips one more time before releasing the embrace and getting to work, Branya grabbing her coffee in the process. The two walked up to Branya's desk and took in the window view while cupping their respective mugs. Oh God. See if that might work. Two walked up to Branya's desk and took in the window view while cupping their respective mugs. The view was breathtaking to both of them, even if they'd seen it over 100 times by now. It wasn't every day someone got to see a sight like that while enjoying a hot cup of Java with their... It wasn't every day someone got to see a sight like that while enjoying a hot... While enjoying... Where are you hiding? Cup of that while enjoying... That. It wasn't every day someone got to see a sight like that while enjoying a hot cup of Java with their loved one. And that to them was their own little slice of personal paradise that they could share and enjoy together. Zila Lime? Zila commented. Branya Lime? Branya questioned. Zila Lime? Branya questioned.
Okay, we already know what that is.
Zila Lime? Bronya giggled at that. Bronya line? Long Bronya.
Okay.
Line. Zila adorned a blush, glad that Bronya had not chosen to do the unthinkable and saw her as a beacon of hope in a miserable life. And saw
Sound fine. Why was that a problem?
her as a beacon of hope.
Try that again, Audacity, I dare ya. That's why we're saving.
You know. Zila Lime? Zila assured. Bronya kissed Zila again.
Hold that back.
Bronya kissed Zila again, this time on her soft cheek. Bronya.
Oh god. Get rid of that. Hopefully that wasn't anything important. I don't think it was.
Line. This time on her soft cheek.
Nope.
Bronya line? Bronya assured. Zila smiled and
Okay, pull that back.
kissed. Bronya assured. Zila smiled and kissed her beloved on the lips one last time before turning from the window with Bronya. No.
Where did I start?
Zila
All the way back to the beginning.
Zila smiled and kissed her beloved
Hang on. I need to get that some more room.
on the Zila smiled and kissed her beloved on the lips one last time before turning from the window with Bronya. No. Before
Oh my god, me. Why?
Zila smiled and kissed her beloved on the lips one last time before turning from the window with Bronya.
Jesus Christ.
Zila lime? Zila commented. Zila commented. Bronya line?
Pull that back.
Bronya line? Bronya agreed. Bronya agreed. Bronya agreed. Bronya agreed.
Okay, what is this?
With that, Bronya returned to her desk and sat her coffee off to the side. Zila took her usual spot next to her beloved and tucked the chair in. Now set to go, the two unlikely lovers returned to their regimen and prepared for their long day ahead in the city of Belobog.
Oh my god. Okay, that's done. Alright. Save. Export. Oh my god. That took way too long. Alright, as fate would have it. Clean.
Alright.
Okay, at least I don't have to go to the field tonight. kink in my shoulder still there. Oh. It's not as bad as it was, but dear God, did it hurt. When I was trying to finish the recording. What happened is I think my shoulder just got held too much, like it was in one spot for too long, and basically it seized up or something. I don't know. All I know is it hurt. Wow, it's already 3 o'clock. Wow. That's nuts. Oh, shut up, Google. I'm probably going to end up doing the voices in this, honestly. I probably am. Kinks and knots in your muscles can cause a lot of tension spasms if you don't stretch them. Well, when I'm doing this, I have to hold still. Otherwise, you get noise. So I have to like sit like this and hold still as I possibly can. The thing is, I've done that before, never got a kink, but yeah, it hurt. Do I really want to do this right now? I probably shouldn't, because I think I'm gonna have to end up doing the lines. I won't know that until I get to the deadline, but I don't know. We'll see. Alright. So I'm just gonna go upload that to my drive, and then I'm gonna call it. I mean, it all depends on how the recording session goes, to be honest. Because sometimes it goes smooth, sometimes you have ones like that where you just can't say a goddamn line and it takes you like 30 fucking minutes to do it. Fucking annoying, to say the least. Yeah, that's true. That's the thing about my age. I do not feel my age. But I guess once it catches up to you, your body tells you, hey, dude, you're in your 30s. I'm not to my 30s yet, but I'll be 29 next month. I'm 2 years from the big 3-0. Which, honestly, age is just a number, but it is something I do have to take consideration. I just forget sometimes. I'm honest. I sometimes forget my fucking age. I know I'm in my late 20s, but I'm either like 28 or 29. Then I have to look at my sister, and because she's always a year older than me. So I'm like, okay, I gotta think here. Because my sister just turned 30. I'm 28. She's always 2 years ahead of me after her birthday. So that's how I remember. Because she's way late. Or not late, early in the year. Her birthday is in February. So mine is in September. She's more towards the beginning of the year. I'm more towards the end. I'm in 28 in October, so wish us both luck being 30. I even got a compliment from someone the other night at the game. They said I was talking about like how old I was, and I mentioned my birthday, and they said, you do not look like you are going on 29. I'm like, well, I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that, because that means I'm going to age well, right? Hopefully. I mean, I'm not going to even kid, guys. I think I'm kind of an ugly duckling. But that's just me. I think I'm going to be an ugly duckling as I age. Really, I do. I mean, I've played one of those like old filters, and oh dear God, do I look goddamn ugly. I look horrible. I've got like wrinkles so bad, and I just look horrible. Like, I hate to say this, but I don't expect to live like maybe to my 80s, but I don't expect to live past 80, like 90. I don't expect to live to 90. But that's a long time away, so I'm not even worried about it right now. But anyways, I think I'm going to call the stream there. I am fucking tired. Shut up, you're good looking enough for most girls. I had a crush on you for 2 whole years, remember? Yeah, I remember that. But I think it's my voice you had a crush on, because deep voices like tend to be very attractive to girls. Some deep voices seem to be more like attractive. I don't know about that. Like, it's kind of like this thing with, like, you know, British people, like the accent, like in a term of like an audiobook like thing. British accents are always like accepted because it adds more. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. The accent is just something that fits. Like someone telling a story with like a British accent works better. Well, I'm glad it was me, because otherwise that'd just be kind of screwed up, but I'm glad. But anyways, I'm calling the stream there. I'm tired. I need food. I need a break. So thank you guys for joining me. Dawn, please take care of yourself. Get better. And I wish you the best of luck on, you know, having a kid. And I really do wish you the best, because that's fucked up. What happened to you? But anyways, thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see y'all later. Oh, I'm in the wrong screen. Bye.